Welcome back to Soggy Rods. So I'm upgrading my boat to lithium. For right now, I'm just focused on the trolling motor. So I thought today what we'd do is maybe talk a little bit about the specs, the charger, and then I'll show you how I'm going to wire these up parallel, but I'm going to do it here on the bench. It is storming outside. I am not going to get to fish this weekend, and I don't want to take the cover off my boat and fill it with water with the amount of rain we're getting. So I'll show you here on the bench, and then when the weather does break here, hopefully by next weekend, I'm going to get these installed and get them out on the water. So what I've been doing over the past couple months really is kind of a deep dive into lithium. Now these are lithium iron phosphate, or LiFePO4. Now these particular ones, these are LiTime. They are these are both a group 24 100 amp hour batteries. Now when I wire these parallel, that's going to give me 200 amp hours, still at 12 volts though, because they're in parallel, not series. So with these, I get to get rid of that big heavy, I've got a group 27 interstate deep cycle battery in there now, and that thing weighs a little over 50 pounds. It's actually closer to 60. This battery weighs 20 pounds, almost exactly. So I'm looking at 40 pounds here. If I choose to put the charger in the boat, which I'm probably going to do, I'm kind of back and forth right now, but I'm probably just going to mount this inside the compartment also, and this thing just weighs a couple pounds. I'm still lighter with what essentially is going to be a 200 amp hour system, and I'm still shaving a couple pounds off. Now I went with the Group 24 because they're just a little bit smaller footprint. So I'll still have a fair amount of room up on the front compartment, which honestly, I don't put a lot in there. That's on like my casting deck, but I've got some extra life vests, I've got my emergency paddle, I've got a couple tools up there, but I don't use it to store tackle or anything like that. So, and I'm going to have plenty of room for everything else with both of these up there. Now I could have gone with like 165 amp hour, a little bit bigger footprint, something like that, but I wanted to just run two of these here and get the 200 amp hours. So without getting too nerdy, let's talk a little bit about the specs on these things. I will grab my meter just for fun. All right, so the nominal voltage listed in the pamphlet, which by the way, these come with the batteries, the quick start guide, the charging manual, and they're very clearly written. They've got lots of really good detailed pictures in here. If you're a visual picture person, it goes through all kinds of good information. I recommend reading it. I know most of us don't read this stuff, but I recommend reading it. So the nominal voltage on this is 12.8 according to the specs that are listed. So let's see what we get here. 12.8 on the money. Another great thing, I think, with these particular batteries here is I can connect them to an app. And it was super easy to connect these. There's a barcode right up here on top. You can just scan the top of this battery with your phone, and it's a seamless connection. It works really, really well. And then you just connect it to your Bluetooth here. And this battery right here, and there's a serial number on here too. So this is 87800 or B07800, and I'm at 99%, and I'll tell you why here in a second. And then I can go right over to my other battery. And this one here is at 100% because I haven't done anything with this. Now I charged both of these. When they ship them, they're going to come about 50% charged. One was just below, one was just above. And that's a good storage capacity if they're going to be sitting, is right around 50%. So you can look at, you've got your current, power and watts, your capacity, your voltage and everything on these. You can also come in here and look at your balance. The cells are balanced, great. You can look at, you can look at the overall balance. Everything is well balanced here. You can look at your cells. Cells are normal, looking good there. The BMS is operating smoothly, no issues there. So this is nice because if I'm out on the water and I want to know where I'm at with, how much do I really have left in these things before I'm going to be stranded, right? I can just look and go, oh, you know, I'm 60% or whatever I am, right? So having the app is awesome. So the other thing with LiTime is they've got some other options. So if you like live in Iowa in the Midwest where my brother lives, in the wintertime, it is like stupid cold. So you can get batteries that will self-heat. And so these have a lot of protections in them. You know, they've got like low voltage protection, high voltage protection. So, you know, if it's too cold out, if you get too many volts or not enough, you know, it's just the BMS in here, the battery management system, is going to protect this battery. So that's another great thing about these too. And you can see a lot of the stuff on your app, which is even better. Now to charge these, they do recommend 14.2 to 14.6 volts and 20 amps. Now you can charge it with 50 amps, but they recommend 20 amps. I would agree with that. When I first got these, I actually charged them very slowly with a NOCO, and this will do a lithium battery, but this is only a 5 amp, so it took forever. Now, depending on your state of charge, if this thing is near dead and you need to charge it up to 100%, with a recommended charger, you can charge these up in about 5 hours. Now, if you went up to a 50 amp, you'd be charging these things in about 2 hours, but that is really shoving some electrons in these things pretty hard. So I opted to just purchase the 20 amp, and I think that that's going to hopefully extend the life on these things a little bit. So the other thing is these particular batteries here, now it depends on your state of charge and how often you charge them and stuff like that, but these are good for 4,000 charges or more, and we'll get into that in just a second, where a lead acid battery like what I have right now, you're looking at, you know, maybe 250, 400, maybe 500, really depends on, you know, how far down you're draining that thing, how far up you're charging that thing. The life expectancy on a lead acid battery is not great. Here's the other thing. These particular LiTime batteries are about the same price as a quality lead acid battery, except I get to charge this thing at least 4,000 times if I treat it good, where a lead acid, I'm buying another one for the same price. Now let's talk a little bit about taking care of these things. So with a lithium battery, they really like to be run in that 20 to say 75, 80% zone, right? So they don't like to be discharged below 20 too much, too often, and they don't like to be pushed above 80% charge too often. Now, in the pamphlet here, they recommend balancing your batteries about every 6 months. I was going to do it a little bit more frequently than that, and I probably will. I'm thinking about every 3 to 4 months, you know, once every quarter. I'll just individually charge these things, and then I'll hook them together in a parallel again, and I'll make sure everything's nice and balanced, and the cells are looking good. And also, if you keep in that 20 to 80% range, you're going to get more than 4,000 charges out of these things. You know, if you're only taking it from like 80% down to 60%, then you can actually expect to maybe get, they claim as, I've seen people say that you can get up to 15,000 charges in these things because you're just operating in a short window. Now you still have to balance them. It's still good to do that. Run them down, you know, very low and then charge them back up, make sure everything balances. So let's talk about some wiring, since I'll be wiring these in parallel here in just a second for you. The battery cables that I went with, now this is a tinned cable. It's important. If you're doing stuff on anything with marine, get tinned wire. I will leave links to this stuff below so you don't have to hunt for it. This is a 6-gauge wire. And then I bought tinned terminals here, and they come with shrink wrap. These are super cheap. I'll link these below too. So let's just spin these around here. Again, really light. And figure out, I know that this here is how I'm going to install them in my boat. So I will mount these trays down inside that compartment, drop my batteries in, and then I've got to wire them up. So once you know where your batteries are going to sit in your boat, if you're going to do a parallel, or series even, you need to know, you know, how far or how much cable do I need. So I like to give myself a little bit of slack and go something about like this. So I'm bringing this to about the center of the battery, and then on the other side I'll do the same thing. That gives me just a little bit of wiggle room in here. And also you kind of account for your terminals, so don't put them right up to this, but just off just a little bit here, and then you can go, okay, I need to cut my cable right here. So then all I do is I just take a razor blade and I kind of figure out how deep into that connector do I need to go, and then I just trim off the sheathing of the cable. I clamp those two connectors in my vise. I get out some good solder, get out my torch, and I just start heating up the connector while I'm pushing solder down into the connector. Now, a solder connection is the best connection you're going to get. You can crimp them if you want. I highly, highly recommend soldering them. And then once they're nice and soldered in, give them a good tug. Make sure that you got a good connection there, a good solder. You don't want these things loose or coming apart, or you just get a bad connection in there. You want them, you want these things strong. And then all you do is you just take the heat shrink, which are these particular ones here, they have kind of a sealant inside of them, and you'll see that when you're all done. These things will kind of ooze out a little bit. But put that over there, and then just very lightly take your torch or even a heat gun and just go back and forth over them, and that thing will just shrink right up there and give you a really good solid seal around those connections. So when you get these batteries, your hardware here is going to come separate, but all you do, and they've got a couple washers on here, and they've got these little caps, and that just covers the post here, the bolt, so that if anything touches across these, you're not touching metal to metal and arcing and causing some possible serious issues. These are a 13 millimeter. So to wire these in a parallel, you want positive to positive and then negative to negative. So all we're going to do is just take a nut, connect that side there, and then we'll just connect this side over here. They recommend about 106 to 119 inch-pounds of torque. And you can get out your little torque wrench if you want, or you can just give them a good snug. They'll be just like so. And then what I like to do is I want these coming to the inside. I don't want to put these to where they're out here, because I don't want stuff in my compartment snagging on them and stuff. I want to keep things, relatively compact in this footprint. Now, this is the basics of a parallel system. So if you're running a trolling motor like me, your trolling motor leads, positive and negative, would go off of one battery to your trolling motor. Doesn't matter which one, you can do them off either one. Now, because I was doing some other testing, I had hooked up a small motor to one of these, put an amp clamp around it, and was checking to see, what the app was telling me that the draw was versus what my amp clamp and meter were telling me, and they were neck and neck. They were spot on. So, but the battery, this is the 800, which is this guy right here. Because I had been running, this motor off there, I'm at 99% state of charge, whereas the other one is 100%. So what I want to do is I want to charge this thing up to 100%. Okay, so we've got our charger here, and it comes with this cable here. Now, red and black, positive, negative, we're going to hook up our charger, and we're going to give this thing a charge to where it's 100%. And then we can plug in our charger here. Now, on our charger, we've got 12 volt or 18 volt. So this is a 12 volt system, so I've got it on 12 volt. Now, if I hit the select button, it's just going to move it over to 16 volts. Now you can see it's flashing red, green, red, green, red, green pretty fast. And if you look on this side right here, it'll tell you slow flash, rapid flash, green slow, steady, red always charging, things like that. So we're going to let this thing sit here for just a minute, and this thing is going to turn to the red. And all that's going to do, after it has a chance to sort of communicate with it for a second, figure out the state of charge and everything, it's going to turn red, and we're going to start charging this battery from 99% up to 100%. See, there it went. Now it's solid red here. Okay, well that was super fast. It probably took about 1 minute, and now we're in the green here. So this battery is fully charged according to that. And again, you can always check it on your app. 800, that's that battery. Boom, we're at 100%. So I powered that down. I'm just going to take this off for a second. We're going to put this right back on, however. So I will be mounting the charger in my boat. I'm most positive I probably will be. That charger is rated at IP65, which means it can take a splash of water. It's not going to hurt it. So I think I will mount that in my compartment of my boat. So let's go ahead and hook up our batteries with the charger, with the charging pigtail, I should say, attached. I think I will, because this charger is, it is waterproof, not totally waterproof, but it's IP65. So, you know, if it gets splashed with a little water, it is not going to hurt it. So though everything's on there nice and tight, this is how it will sit in the boat. Now, so I've got my charging pigtail here that comes into this battery. This battery hooks to this battery in parallel, and then off of these posts here, I will hook up my positive and negative to my trolling motor up on the bow. So now all I have to do is just take my plug in here and snap it together. And there we go. Now this is also a waterproof plug. And the charger is doing the same thing. It's just analyzing what things look like right now. And so can you charge them in parallel? The answer is yes, but here's the catch. That's a 20 amp charger. You're going to get some amps going here and some amps going here. So you know, if these were dead, will it take 5 hours? No, it's going to take a lot longer than that. You can figure roughly double that time. So it's going to take 10 hours because you're not pushing 20 amps into one battery. It's going to get 9 or 10 amps here and 9 or 10 amps over here. And if you're charging these in parallel like this, you can look on your app and see that. So there is some really good information in here. There's a recommended cable sizing chart. So if you know the amps that are going to be drawing, you know, so my trolling motor draws 50 amps. Now that's max power 100%. So if you look on this cable sizing chart here, it will tell you that I probably could have used an 8-gauge wire. I decided to go up to a 6-gauge, which will give me up to 65 amps. Is it necessary to go up to 6-gauge? No, but having that little cushion just makes me feel better. So there'll be a couple more videos coming up relating to switching these over. I'll get these installed. I'll show you how I install them. It's pretty basic. Basically, we're just going to mount these trays, these battery trays, to the inside of the boat, and then we're going to strap these down and wire them up exactly how we just went through. Very basic, not hard at all. But then I'm going to take these fishing, and what I'd like to do is we'll have them at 100%. I'm going to see how long they run before they get down to 80%, because my goal is I'm going to keep these here running between that 20 and 80%, because that is where they love to live. And I'm going to get the most life out of these batteries if I keep that window, rather than trying to, you know, force them to 100% every time I charge them. So, but I want to know how, you know, between that 20 and 80%, how much trolling can I do? So let me give you a little context. When I'm fishing, most of the time I'm working the bank, right? But I'm constantly on my trolling motor, and I usually run it between 30 and 50%, depending on the wind. So, you know, I'll move here, move there, move, you know, face the boat this way, that way, and I'm just working that bank, but I'm on the trolling motor on, off, on, off, on, off for typically 4 to 6 hours per day. Now, I also do some trout and kokanee fishing. So I could, you know, I could be a couple poles out. I might be trolling at 50 to 70%. And it really depends on, you know, how fast, you know, I'm going to be trolling slower for kokanee, faster for trout. It also depends on the wind, if there's any current, anything like that. So, but typically I'm between that 50 and 70%. Usually I'm closer to 50%. So, you know, just real world how I fish, I want to know how many hours on the water doing what I normally do am I going to get with 200 amp hours of batteries. And one of the reasons I went with the dual battery setup is because if I'm going to go to the east side of my state and do some fishing, because I'll be camping most likely, I may not have a place to plug in. So how long will these, can I get through a weekend of fishing 8 hours a day, maybe 10 hours a day? Can I get through that, a couple, 2 or maybe even 3 days of fishing? Or am I going to have to charge? And I want to know this stuff. So once we get all this figured out in real world out on the water, then we'll do a follow-up video on that, and I'll let you know what it really looks like. And you can, if you want, you can calculate your amp hours, and there's all kinds of formulas you can use to get you in the ballpark, but it's a ballpark. I want to know really, what does it look like when the way I fish on the water? And I'm sure a lot of you fish the same way. In fact, I know several of you out there in the community who do fish the same way I do. So with all that said, unfortunately, like I said, it's been storming out. I can't get out there and get these. I don't have, my boat doesn't fit in my garage, or I'd be doing this in my garage, but I'm not going to sit out there in a windstorm and a rainstorm and try to put these things in. So the next video, we'll install them real quick and we'll get on the water, and I'm curious to see, I know what my top speed was with the lead acid battery. I'm curious to see if I can, crank that motor up to 100% and see if there's any difference. Because right now I'm about 3.5 miles an hour. That's my top speed. 3.8 if I have a little tailwind. And I'm curious if it will, am I getting more torque out of this motor with this setup? And I have no idea. We'll find out. But anyways, hey, thanks for watching, stopping by. Stick with us because, like I said, will be a couple more videos coming up on this. And I'll also do a longer term review. I will leave links below to everything, the batteries, the charger, where I bought them. These are about, they're about $250 a piece. Currently, the prices fluctuate all the time, so you'll just have to look and see what they're selling for when you look. And the cables and the connectors and things like that too. So you won't have to hunt for them. I'll just leave links. You can find them that way pretty easy. So anyways, thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope the weather clears up. We'll get out and do some fishing. We'll see you next time.